This just in! Breaking news! Our top story tonight, Trump declares a state of emergency invoking the Stafford Act, which I assume means spending millions of dollars to not win playoff games. Next up, Katie Porter secures free testing for all US citizens. That's right, you get a test, you get a test, you get a test. Not even Oprah could give you one free. In other news, the NBA, the NHL, and March Madness have all been postponed. I think we all know what SportsCenter is going to look like for a while. And finally tonight, 2 women involved in a Walmart brawl over hand sanitizer. Not exactly my idea of a good, clean fight. All of this and more tonight on How Long Can I Continue Running This Joke? Before we jump into things today, I just want to say that it's tough out of the gate when you start a new YouTube channel. Obviously, the last couple of channels already had a couple 100,000 subscribers on them, but this one doesn't. So I'm going to need every bit of help I can get from you guys to help grow this channel out of the gate. So if you could put a thumbs up on this video and subscribe to the channel, it'd mean a lot to me. Thank you. If you didn't see it earlier today, Trump had a briefing where he declared this a national emergency and also invoked the Stafford Act, although he didn't call it by name, essentially allowing him to clear up funds to be able to make moves. Basically, what this act does is it allows the president to essentially use appropriated funds to help in a disaster scenario. However, additional funds will have to be approved by Congress. This was an anticipated move from the president. In fact, it was confirmed by a couple of news agencies before he even went on. There has been some comments made, though, about some tweets that the president fired off last night. Tweeting, "Sleepy Joe Biden was in charge of the H1N1 swine flu epidemic, which killed thousands of people. The response is one of the worst on record. Our response is one of the best, with fast action of border closings and a 78% approval rating. The highest on record. His was the lowest." The Obama White House had to immediately issue an apology for Joe Biden's remarks and any alarm that he might have caused, an alarm about a swine flu outbreak that took 6 months for Obama to declare a national emergency and that killed 12,000 Americans. First off, there's a bit of confusion on this subject. Trump is correct in that Obama did not call it a national health emergency until about 6 months after it was initially happening. He initially called it a public health emergency, and so I see people arguing about these two terms, but Trump is right on this one. Although, to be totally honest, I don't even think this was an emergency at all. 60 million people got swine flu, 12,000 died. That's a mortality rate of 0.02%. So when we think about that in the big picture, coronavirus is roughly estimated at 2%, something in that vicinity. The swine flu was 0.02%. Coronavirus is 100 times more deadly. The Obama administration also acknowledged that they were slow in getting the vaccine program going. So there's no doubt about it that mistakes were made on that front. But my main issue here is this isn't a game of who fucked up the pandemic worse. This is about what's happening right now and being the president of America. Can you imagine if presidents of the past, rather than focusing on the matter at hand, only just attacked the people that came before them for how they dealt with different issues? I wonder what that would look like. Welcome to American history if it happened in 2020. Following the nuclear bomb being dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Harry Truman tweeted, "So many conservatives whining that I nuked Japan. Do you know how many people died under Lazy Legs FDR? Failing war effort, sad." Or what about this famous tweet from Abe Lincoln referencing the Civil War? Fake newspaper media is calling this the bloodiest war in history. Toothless George Washington didn't even have to fight his own country. Very unfair. And of course, the infamous Herbert Hoover tweet during the Great Depression, which read, "The failing New York Tribune, which will be out of business soon, is spreading mass hysteria about the so-called Great Depression. The only thing great are the dinner parties at the White House, which no one is ever talking about." But anyway, I feel like we've covered a lot of Trump stuff lately, and I want to dive into what the president is saying and doing every now and then because it's important. But I don't want to be talking about him every video, all video. So I'm not. This brings us to our next story, which is this epic moment from Katie Porter in the House of Representatives just yesterday. Let's go ahead and roll the clip.
I can't stand to be asked the same question 3 times. It just irritates me.
Who sent you?
You'll have to kill me.
Who sent you?
Kiss my ass, Powers.
Who sent you?
Dr. Evil.
Wait, hold, no, I think that was the wrong. Can we get the actual clip up here?
Dr. Redfield, will you commit to the CDC right now using that existing authority to pay for diagnostic testing free to every American regardless of insurance?
Well, I can say that we're going to do everything to make sure everybody can
No,
get the
not
care
good
they
enough.
need.
You have the existing authority. Will you commit?
What I'm going to say is I'm going to review it in detail with...
No. Will you commit?
I think you're an excellent questioner, so my answer is yes.
So basically, Porter managed to get the director of the CDC to agree to covered testing for anyone that needs coronavirus testing. But during it, I couldn't help but feel like it reminded me of a different show I used to watch.
For someone without insurance, do you know the out-of-pocket cost of a complete blood count test? Do you have any idea? You want to take a ballpark?
I would say $75.
Okay, 58.
Getting closer.
How about flu A?
Ma'am, again, I would take a guess at about maybe 50.
43. How about the cost of an ER visit?
Ma'am, that's probably about $3,000 to $5,000.
That is $1,151.
So apparently all testing will be covered, but how quickly? When will that go into effect? Will that actually be followed through? There are many questions that remain to be answered before we see what happens, but I'll certainly be keeping a close eye on it. Up next, this was a thing that was trending on Twitter, which is apparently what kids are calling the coronavirus. I can't tell if this is just a desperate cry from young people in this country to let the older generations know that they need help, and no matter how hard they work, they can't seem to make ends meet. They can never find the success that was promised to them that isn't there. Or if they're just really mean. It's one or the other. Also, apparently, if you say coronavirus or put it in the title on your videos, YouTube removes monetization for your channel. But, joke's on them because people aren't watching my videos. That's right. Suck on that, YouTube. And finally tonight, it looks like everything is canceled. Well, maybe not everything, but a lot of things are gone. Most sports events have been postponed or just totally canceled. We've seen that happen to the NBA. We've seen that happen to the NHL. We've seen that happen with March Madness. Baseball has said they're going to postpone things for a bit. And then this is all also asking the question, what's going to happen to the 2020 Olympics? And if you had to ask me, I think that there's not very much chance of them happening. Even though it sucks to have to do, it is the right decision. It's been proven that social distancing does actually have an effect when it comes to lowering total number of cases. Just a few infected people at one sporting event, or even just one guy, can do a lot of damage to everyone else. If 5, 10, 15, 20 people get it from there, due to the exponential nature of the way these things work, it can end up having a huge effect. Even before the NBA suspended play after the Rudy Gobert testing positive incident, there was talk about what would happen with no fans in the NBA. The Warriors had announced that they wouldn't have fans for their games, and LeBron went on record saying that he wasn't willing to play without fans, which is a totally ridiculous thing to say because some players don't even get to choose if they play without fans. After the season was suspended, some teams are going to extraordinary lengths to manage to maintain some viewership. In fact, the Phoenix Suns have announced they will simulate their entire remaining schedule on NBA 2K and stream it on Twitch. Personally, I think that's great for the Phoenix Suns fans. They finally have something exciting to watch. Alright, Devin Booker's pretty good, but the joke stands. There are many acts of kindness going on around the NBA, including Mark Cuban saying he will continue to pay his employees an hourly wage as if games are still running, and Kevin Love has donated $100,000 to essentially the same thing. With the sports world starting to cancel everything, many shows and events are starting to do the same thing. At this point, any large gathering of people is pretty irresponsible, and I would expect almost all of them to start to evaporate within the next couple of weeks. I think playing poker is going to end up being hit especially hard. When you play live poker, you're exchanging chips back and forth with people from all different parts of the world, and that's simply not something that you want to be doing during a contagious virus outbreak. Many different poker series are starting to cancel their events, except for the World Series of Poker. Now, I saw this coming a ways back. I tried to bet and get 20 to 1 just a few weeks ago, or 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I did manage to get some decent action. Now, at this point, it's looking more and more likely. So many things are being canceled. Will the World Series of Poker go ahead and run as scheduled? Now, the World Series of Poker tweeted a couple weeks ago that they were planning on doing it, but things have only gotten worse since then. what's the point where this thing no longer runs? This also starts to bring up another question. How long is this going to go on for? At what point can people start to live their lives again? And that's something that I think I question the most. Now look, I thought this was going to be bad from the get-go. I thought that people were generally too optimistic on what was going to happen, and until it starts to hit home locally, it's easy to say this isn't a big deal. I also think that because so many of the past virus outbreaks were very, very low mortality rate, or they didn't really hit the US at all, it makes this, it makes this environment of people that are just used to these things kind of being scams. But this one is actually going to have a significant impact. The question is for how long and how much of an impact. I'm having a hard time seeing the precautions being put into place right now not being in effect for at least months. In fact, I'm having a hard time seeing them not in place until August, September, or October, because even if things start to die down, it just takes a small outbreak in a certain area to where it can ramp back up and you're back with the same problem. So here's my question to you, YouTube viewers. How long do you think this goes on for? How many cases do you think there end up being in the world? How many cases do you think there end up being in the US? How many people will die because of this virus? I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are. That's going to be it for me today, and I appreciate everybody tuning in. I'm going to be getting a haircut at home because I'm not going to the hairstylist, so beware of what I might look like next week. Thanks for tuning in today, guys. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you again on Monday.